$55 million? What's up? Good afternoon. Welcome to Niners Talk, all Niners Talk Live. That's Jose Sanchez with a very important message for the people viewing at home. I'm Grant Cohn. We're going to get into what Jose has to say or doesn't have to say later on that topic. But first, this is Brock Purdy Day because Jordan Schultz came out with you heard about a Woj bomb? Oh, this is a Schultz bomb. And Schultz bomb is, the whole world is different. What you thought you knew about Brock Purdy and the 49ers, forget it, because now it turns out that the 49ers and Brock Purdy, they're talking. They're negotiating. They're actively negotiating a contract. I didn't know this. And it's expected that they will agree to a number that's somewhere between $50 and $55 million. I don't know. Is this supposed to sound reasonable? It still sounds like way, 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 way too much to me.
It sounds like they just took a topic and just like put it back in the microwave and reheated it. They treated it like how I treat my pizza the next day. It's like, what do I got to eat? Here's what I had yesterday or whatever before. Let me just pop that back in there.
Jordan Schultz was like, I need to be in the news. What's going on? I got nothing.
It's like, wait, so it's a nothing burger. We got a nothing burger here. It's just like a pulse check. It's like, oh, hey guys, just remember this topic is going on here.
Let me ask you this though. You had Garofalo a few days ago guesstimating a little less than $60 million a year. Now you have Schultz guesstimating 50 to 55. These are both very connected people who could call Brock Purdy's agent if they wanted to. His numbers, public information. Like, do you think these guys are just pulling these numbers out of their rear end? Or do you feel like Purdy's agent is possibly all over the place here behind the scenes?
No, I don't think they're pulling it out of the rear end. I think for sure they're tapped into that. Kind of like the same thing. It's like anytime Schefter, it's always like whenever Schefter talks, it's always skews towards the 49ers, like talking from like, all right, this is how the team building, this is how they're thinking. Kind of like almost like how all of us who cover the 49ers or talk about them, like how we talk about it, we will always look essentially like 49ers first. And then you got like these two guys, or I guess maybe they just haven't either, maybe the agent reached out to them or vice versa, whatever. Because this has been like a little bit of a slept on topic. We haven't really heard too much lately. I think like, what was it? Like also 5 days ago, someone else said something else about 60+ million or whatever. So it's just like a rehashing of like, hey, let's get us talking to the news. Now free agency is like pretty much done with. Now it's like, hey guys, remember us, remember this. Because now it becomes like a little of a bit of a, not like a real deadline, but a soft one coming up to the draft, right? Not because that's where maybe trade talks. That's getting closer to OTAs now. That's where the real holdouts in the talks. Like that's, if you're any time for you to trade Purdy, it would be coming up to that draft. But those are always like the minor like deadlines. I feel like when it comes to players with contract extensions, because there always is the avenue that could be on the table for them.
Yeah, I look. Here's what I think. Like, if this is what it's ultimately going to take to sign him, I'm just not certain another team would pay it. Remember how this all worked out with Aiyuk last year?
Yeah,
the Niners offered like $25 million a year, and Aiyuk was offended, and he's like, "No, I'm worth 30." And the Niners were like, "Well, we don't want to pay you that much." And Aiyuk said the market's the market, so the Niners were like, "Okay, fair is fair. If you can find a team that's willing to trade us what we want and pay you what you want, we'll talk." And he did. He found multiple teams that were willing. And so the Niners eventually came around. Could Brock do that? If Brock's like, nah, I'm worth $55 million a year, and the Niners are like, prove it. Could he prove it?
Oh, 1,000%. I think that might start getting to that case probably in the coming weeks, again, as it gets closer, and especially if things are not looking good from a negotiation standpoint. Like, say, like, all of a sudden, like, okay, now we have our first harsh line drawn through the sand. It's kind of the same thing with Aiyuk. And it's like this is not anything new to these players for contract extension. Other NFL teams do it. It's like, okay, Brock, we think you're 45. And he's like, well, I think I'm 65 per million, dear. 20 million, 200 million guaranteed. It's like, all right, well, how about you go and figure out your market? You're not a free agent, but like, go ahead, field some teams who will be willing to give us a deal that would make sense for us for draft pick wise. And then for you at the same time. The same thing we did with Aiyuk last year, right? It's like, okay, go find your worth. And he did. And it's like, all right, no, I don't want to go to Cleveland. I don't want to go to New England. I don't want to go to Pittsburgh, whatever. So with Brock, it's like, all right, go ahead, go do that.
He did want to go to Pittsburgh.
I totally expect that.
Yeah, he did want to go to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh was the team that came through at the last. Well, they were one of the teams that came through to help Brandon Aiyuk at the contract he wanted. It was also New England and Cleveland. Brock Purdy, $55 million a year. That's what he wants. The Niners have Mac Jones. They have Aaron Rodgers out there. They have a draft coming up. So let's talk about a potential trade market for Brock Purdy if it comes to it, because they could always give him all the money he wants. That's an option. Or they could get creative and just figure out what their options are. So we mentioned Niners want to play hardball like they did last year with Aiyuk. Listen, Brock, you think you're worth this much? Go find one team that'd be willing to trade us a first-round pick and pay you this money. Are the Steelers that team?
Hey, they might be, because we talked to our boy Noah Strack of Pittsburgh on SI, just fielding, because look, this started from me quoting your thing about like, I don't see any team giving a first round for Purdy, because it goes similar with Aiyuk, right? It's like, we're not going to give a first and extend him, because Purdy's most likely looking for that lucrative deal that I'm against. So when we got to give that first and extend you, that's a little rough. So you start looking at teams in the first round who need a quarterback and would be willing to give Purdy that, especially off a fit. And honestly, the only two teams I saw are the Jets and the Steelers. The Jets, hell no, at 7. And I asked another guy who covers them, and he says, no thanks, we're good off Purdy, give him 7th. That's a very high pick to give up for Purdy and then extend him. So next I saw the Steelers. Okay, the Steelers are quarterback needy. I don't really see the fit with Metcalf, and especially if you keep Pickens there, because those guys are more like deep bomb threats receivers, so I don't see the fit. However, our boy Noah said, yeah, if he's looking for just around 50, which is like, that's a little harsher. It's like, oh, if he's just looking for the 50, I can see the Steelers giving up 21st. And you know what? For a 21st, you're getting a little closer to the end of the first round. It's like you have your starting quarterback for the next few years. That makes sense for them. And I think that's where he's going from. I think that's where the number starts getting a little weird. It's like, okay, do you actually think you can get Purdy for just over 50? Like, he's probably going to bang the table for more. But yeah, the Steelers sound like a very good one, according to our boy Noah.
Well, the Steelers wouldn't necessarily have to extend him right away either. I mean, they had Russell Wilson on a 1-year deal. They had Justin Fields on a 1-year deal. They could play hardball. Who knows? But I do feel like this is a team that'd be interested in Purdy. I mean, they spent the 20th pick in the 2022 draft on Kenny Pickett. And I bet internally in that organization, they wish, man, I wish we had taken freaking Brock Purdy instead. Purdy destroyed him week 1 of 2023. If they liked Kenny Pickett's skill set, like best case scenario, he was going to end up being a guy like what Brock Purdy is right now. And again, the 21st pick isn't that much. So yeah, I could see the Steelers doing it. They have no plan. Their plan is either like give the job to Mason Rudolph. You can't really draft a quarterback at 21. Can you? Now you take Jackson Dart. Take Jackson Dart at 21 and hope.
Yeah, let's rehash Kenny Pickett again. That's
right.
That's
exactly. They're not going to do that. So I could see them wanting to do something that's more the sure thing, and I could see them wanting like being okay with spending money. I mean, they're not cheap like the Yorks are all of a sudden.
I just think the one holdup if you're the Steelers from doing it is like, you know what? Like, obviously Purdy's way better than Pickett. Pickett's a glorified backup. Purdy's a starting caliber quarterback in the league. But one thing Noah said, it's like he mentioned like, oh, he's been to a Super Bowl. I was like, Noah, stop using that. Come on. We've already gone through this, but he mentioned mobility. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's one thing like Pickett didn't really have, especially not on the level of like Purdy. So I think they really like that because maybe the offensive line isn't as a stout, which, that's probably a little problematic. I'm just really curious about the fit there. I know he's saying that, but I think he said it because he ended up saying like, look, there's thirsty quarterbacks. He did reply to me. He's like, there's some thirsty quarterbacks where if you put them based on just like where they've been to, everyone will be sold on them. Like the Steelers are very quarterback desperate. So if there is like another like market you're looking for to get rid of them, if that is the case, that's where you're looking at. You're looking at the Steelers again. It's like, hey, let's break bread, brothers. We know he didn't work last year with Brandon Aiyuk, but we got Brock Purdy.
Look, I know that Noah Strackbean thinks it's a good idea, and I love Noah, and we're colleagues, and we both work on SI. I don't think the Steelers are going to do this. Let me give you some split stats that maybe Noah's not aware of, maybe people in the chat aren't aware of, maybe the Steelers aren't aware of. But in Brock Purdy's career, okay, against the NFC, he's 20-7 with a quarterback rating of 116. He kicks ass in the NFC. When he faces the AFC, he's 6-7 with a quarterback rating of 82. It gets worse when he's facing the AFC North, which is the division he'd be in. His quarterback rating is 72, 4 touchdowns, 7 picks. The one win he has against an AFC North team is against, of course, The Steelers. So I don't know, man. It's pretty cold up there. He can't,
Cold weather city. Yep.
Yep.
Like you really want to trade for a guy who's literally this evidence. It's not even a debate. It's a fact. He sucks in bad weather conditions.
It's a fact.
He's not good in weather conditions. We've seen it already a few times. Like,
what if he uses Kenny Pickett's gloves?
Are they the same hand size? Number one,
maybe.
Are they the same hand size? Number one. Number two, I'm not sure you want to even touch anything Pickett does because that guy just was a turnover machine, just inaccuracies all over. But I think that goes back to the second, like another underrated aspect is about extending Purdy, whether you're the Steelers or the 49ers. In this case, 49ers is, look, if you were in the AFC, are you extending Purdy? Like, think about that. It's like, you can do that. You can sell yourself on extending him, even if they want to go, where it's, again, I don't want them to go into the 55, 60 million range because, look, we could still compete in the NFC because there's not a ton of great quarterbacks or not great quarterbacks for long. Like, there's Stafford, there's Hurts, but he's more of a good player than like a good quarterback. There's Jordan Love, who's a roller coaster. You never know with him. There's just like, and then compared to the AFC, you got like a solid 5 through 6 that are like constants. Like, no, these guys are going to be holding you down for the next 3 to 4 years. Lamar, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, like that you're going to think you're going to compete if you're the Steelers with Purdy against those 5 or 6 players in cold. And you got Metcalf and Pickens, who are not the ideal Purdy receivers.
But hold on, like from the Steelers' perspective, what are their options? Russell's gone.
That's who, yeah.
Fields is gone. Jackson Dart feels like Kenny Pickett 2.0. Aaron Rodgers. Cameron Hayward doesn't want to play with them. I don't know what your options are. Mason Rudolph. He's pretty good. He deserves another chance. We haven't seen enough.
Fine.
Of Mason.
I'll do it myself. Stano said.
All right, let's take some super chats. Dave Sims says, fire Brick, Mac, 2 years, $7 million, Mordecai, quarterback 2, go.
Who's Brick?
Well, there's also other guys you could bring in the room. Dave Sims says, your shirt game is as fire as your music choices. I just went, Jose's killing me today. I took the shot at Kobe yesterday, and this is a little troll. You're trolling me, aren't you? No love for Pau Gasol and Lamar Odom, I guess. No love for Andrew Bynum.
Why can't you give enough love for people?
No love for Sasha Vujicic. He was so important.
The machine.
David Kendall Jr. says, I wouldn't pay no more than 30 a year. And if he doesn't like that, tell him to kick rocks because we got Big Mac.
That's a little too wild for me. I don't, come on, 30 million. Sheesh.
I want Mac Jones just for the memes. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Dave Sims says, fire Purdy and Lyle. Let John and Salah run it now. Then he says, 50 million for zero grip and humidity plus question marks. Okay, Gojira Von Jink says Purdy 5 years, 250 million. First 2 years, 25 each. Third year, 60. 4 and 5 years, 70 each. East opt out after 2 years. I would do that. Would he do it? So it's essentially 2 years, 50 million with a bunch of funny money tacked on. If they like him,
Wouldn't you want to like front it? It's that way. Like when after year 2 or 3 you don't like him, you get out of him easier. That'd be my ideal, right? I mean.
I think this is clever. Like he can come away being like, I got a 5-year deal. I'm getting $50 million a year. It's like, yeah, but nothing's guaranteed after the first 2 years, and you only get $50 million the first 2 years. So
that's always the thing, right? That's why I'm a big proponent of like, look, if you are gonna like cash him out, like give him like no more than like 160, 170 guaranteed, and then that way it's like you come out of the contract after a few years, and then it's like, well, yeah, it's 200 plus, but he only got 170 guaranteed. He's not. It's less than Goff's and Hurts.
Rod Simmons says, Aiyuk in 4th for Cousins and Kyle Pitts. Cousins. Do we have a Cousins topic today? Should we even entertain Kirk Cousins as a topic? I guess we have to.
We have to. And since we're talking about trades, yeah, because I actually talked about it the other week. And first of all, that Falcons are weird for keeping Cousins and paying him $10 million of that dollars.
Yeah.
But I think actually, you know what? I think it's because Kirk doesn't want to get screwed again. He wants to go somewhere where the fit. But yeah, I think if Kirk Cousins is on the table, the only way I could see that is if you're trading Brock, because you wouldn't have to pay Kirk anything. You're just giving up draft capital, and his worth is very, very low.
Is this a real report? Says all day, every day, Kim. Yeah, it's from Jordan Schultz. You can check it out. I'll put it in the chat box, but foxsports.com. So he writes a whole lot about Brock Purdy and Brandon Aiyuk. This is Jordan Schultz. It's the guy who got into that fracas with Ian Rappaport at the NFL Combine at Starbucks. He's a Starbucks heir.
Yeah, where were you at? You were complaining about like there's not enough things for you to film, but that was the thing to film.
I missed it. I didn't know that Starbucks was the place to be.
Terrible
Goes
coverage.
down. JH says I took it, smelled horrible, but was so efficient, barely used any toilet paper by Niners logic. I shouldn't flush it. That was gross. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's go into further hypotheticals. Now that the Giants have signed Russell Wilson, it doesn't really seem like they're super eager to draft Shedeur Sanders if he drops. Jets seem like they're sort of committed to Justin Fields for now, and the Saints seem like they're going to give Derek Carr one more year. So if Shedeur Sanders doesn't get drafted by the Browns with the second pick, and he might, he could be there when the Niners are on the clock with the 11th pick. If Brock hasn't signed an extension to this point and the Niners are still wondering whether it'll get done, do you think they would take Deion's kid, the 11th pick?
No, because I think Kyle really does not like those quarterbacks. He really doesn't. He was kind of forced to take Trey Lance in a way, or convinced, whatever you want to call it. Like that's why it gets with like they moved up to 3 and it was Mac or Trey. I just think like unless like he knows like this guy's gonna be really, really freaking good. I don't see like Shedeur being that guy. Like Shedor's solid. I think he'll be a fine quarterback. I just don't think he's gonna be ever like an elite guy. Even though he has the traits, he'll probably get there. Yeah, but I just don't see it. I think that's his game style is like a little too freelance that Kyle would like. Even the stuff that Purdy does himself, and he's should be a little more of the structured quarterback. I know he has that backyard ability, but even when Purdy does it himself, even the year they went to the Super Bowl, I remember that Jaguars one where he hits Aiyuk to the left when he's rolling right, like that pissed him off. Like I think he's not going to have that. He's not going to want to deal with that, especially with the young kid. It's like it's just going to be like a frustration thing that I don't think he's sold on, especially because it's not going to be as glaring to him. I think that he's going to be one of the elites.
Fair. Let me try to make the case for why Kyle might like Shedeur.
I would like.
He likes Mac. He likes Mac, and Mac isn't the most mobile quarterback. Shedeur, he may freelance a little bit, but he's not that mobile, and he's not as mobile as Cam Ward or even Brock Purdy. Yeah. He says he models his game after Tom Brady. Hey, don't we all? But I think the way he talks and like the way he operates is kind of up Kyle's alley. He tries to throw with touch. He tries to throw with anticipation. He tries to win from the pocket. Those are things Kyle likes. He'd be cheap. He doesn't have to be elite. Just be on a rookie deal. And if you get Shedeur and you could trade Brock to the Steelers for the 21st pick, then you can get a defensive lineman in round 1 and a quarterback in round 1 and not have to give up 21 to 25% of your salary cap to Brock, which I wouldn't want to do. I'm sorry. I like you, Brock, but not that much.
Yeah. And maybe it's just because like I haven't watched every single Shedeur Sanders game.
Me neither. So
I could probably say like no more than like in terms of start to finish, like 4.
I'm sure you've watched more than I have.
Yeah. It's probably. I think you're right too. I don't think I might be a little too overdramatic on like how much his backyard play has been, but I just know that he has it there. And there's times where I've seen stretches in games where I've been watching.
He takes a lot of sacks.
Like, yeah, that too. Where he's kind
of a lot of sacks. He holds the ball a while.
That's the number one thing that would frustrate him. Like he wants the ball out of his hands, and then that's kind of was the issue with Purdy last year, right? He was holding the ball too much in his hands. He had one of the highest time to throws. And it's like whether he was taking sacks or making errant decisions, it's like, no, I want the good decisions. This is a quarterback fail-safe offense where it's like you have this and this. If not, do that. Don't try to like do too much.
That's why they like Mac, right? Once upon a time, the idea, even when Mac was at Alabama, he wasn't trying to do too much. He was just getting the ball to the playmakers.
It's the same thing with like Jimmy and stuff like that. That's why I liked him. It's like, oh, I know he's gonna hit this. He's just gonna listen, and it's like that he's not gonna do too much because he can't. He's physically limited. Where
I got another thing with Shedeur. Wouldn't you be kind of worried if you were coaching him that his dad would take your job? You know what I mean? Like if I miss the playoffs with your kid, is my boss going to fire me and hire Deion next year? Because he seems like he's one of the up and coming coach. Like he's definitely a leader of men. He's got the Dan Campbell. People would play for him.
I think if you're Kyle, maybe. I think if you're Deion, I think because Deion does have that respect for the Niners and like Kyle, that I don't think he would necessarily like be too into it. He'd be like, this looks a little shady. And he's like a very like a man of honor, Deion Sanders. So I think he'd be like, this doesn't look right. Which is why I was like, he was kind of mentioned more with the Cowboys. It's like, he's not gonna go with the Sun, but like going with the Cowboys, that makes sense.
Right. So like if the Niners don't take him at 11, the Cowboys could take Shedeur at 12 and trade. There were rumors today that The Browns were interested in possibly trading for Dak Prescott, which, man, you're already paying Deshaun Watson. I don't understand how you could bring on the highest pay, but it's the Browns. They'll figure out a way to do something bad. They'll figure it out. I trust them. They'll invent ways.
If Shador was there, I would love for it because I'm always for like the chaos and like just something new. And it's like, oh yeah, we're Brock. I kind of know what we're getting. You know, sometimes we'll get like the very high, like, oh, he's really good, and the very low is like, oh, what the hell was that? With Shador, it's like I'm always for the intrigue. You know, I'm always for like, oh, let's see what he can do. I want to see the growth. I want to see what he can be. You know, it's kind of the same thing that led us, or at least led me to liking Trey Lance. Like, all right, let's see what happens. I'm very intrigued by something new, by the new car to drive. I want to see what capacities do we have? What can we get out of this?
Let me try to continue to make the case for Shador. So he threw 900 passes the last 2 years at Colorado. He also played at Jackson State. So he has a lot of experience. And in 2 seasons, he completed 71.8% of his passes, 64 touchdowns, 13 picks. I mean, those are just numbers, but like he is an experienced college passer. He's not like Trey Lance coming in with like 350 throws.
Oh, yeah, no.
I don't know. Here's the other thing I want to say. I don't know that he's going to be an elite quarterback. I'm not saying Shador Sanders is going to be an elite quarterback. I feel like Jalen Milroe has a higher ceiling than Sanders, but if he can be a good starter right away for the duration of his rookie contract, dude, he could win a Super Bowl. Whereas if you give Brock $55 million a year, he could go to some Pro Bowls, but you're not winning a Super Bowl. So that's why I'm intrigued with Sanders or any quarterback you could take who's like a day one starter in round one.
I think that's kind of like, at least what I've seen, what I've read and like seen has been said. It's like Cam Ward's the higher ceiling guy for long term, and Shador's like your now guy. That's why it's like, oh, he wouldn't make sense for the Giants. Yeah, sure they got neighbors, but like, okay, do they have a great offensive line? Do they have anyone else? I mean, like it's not the most. He needs to go to the more like kind of like ready team. And of all like the top 10, or I guess in this case 11 teams picking, like the 49ers are that team that could go for a quarterback.
Here's my only question. Do you think Bosa would like him?
I'm not going to touch that one.
I mean, you guys were thinking it, right? You guys were thinking it, but was it just me? Okay. Grega says, wouldn't give him anything over 35 million. Dave Sims says, Brick Lyle love hot dogs for shape. Grant, well, that's mean. All day, every day. Kim says, are the Niners trying to stay in purgatory? 50 million. That's what I'm saying, man. That's purgatory to me. Kim, Niners don't care about success for next few years, says Dave Sims. All right, let's get real weird. Aaron Rodgers, free agent, doesn't know what he wants to do. Might go to Mexico soon. Might go to a cave. Might stay indoors. Who knows how he's going to make his decision? But in a few months, he'll decide. He'll do something. And I feel like he wants to play for the 49ers, man. He went to Cal. He's from Northern California. I think in his little narcissistic mind, it'd be so perfect to end his career here where it should have started. Do you think that the Niners, like if he came to the Niners, he's like, look, man, instead of giving Brock Purdy $58 million a year, why don't you give me 30 and trade him for a first round pick and we'll win a Super Bowl? Do you think they would be tempted by an offer like that?
Probably, yeah. I would like that. That'd be cool. It's like you get to save half. You get essentially your bridge starter for a year, maybe 2. You get another pick. And like, look, I think all this especially is entertainable because the 49ers are the one putting the message out there. Like, we're not into the cash spending. That's where I think like also like kind of like reinforces my point of not lucratively extending him. It's like, look, the team just showed us that they hated that Brandon Aiyuk contract. Like they overpaid for that contract. Again, their own fault. They waited too long, but they hated it because they didn't feel comfortable giving him that type of money, whether they thought he was worth it or not, or whether they felt like they got, dragged through it. They're essentially, so you mean to tell me they're going to do that for Brock, like, and just put themselves in a situation just because like, oh, well, the cap rises. It's like, well, you know what? The cap rises every year and they're still talking about the Aiyuk situation being ugly. So like, it's not just about talking about like, oh, the market increases and the cap rises. Like, yes, sure. That does play into a factor, but that's only if like, you're going to like overpay a little bit, which is why, again, like if Brock had a 2023 year last year, that feels better. This case, no, like Rodgers wasn't bad last year. Obviously, like it was very weird, the Saleh situation, which is why I think like that would be the elephant in the room. Like, I mean, obviously, like Saleh's will be defense only, so they won't have to like mingle as much. That would be like the one thing I was like, how would that work? But that would be one that's very entertainable that you got to consider.
That's right? A good question. I wonder what Saleh has to say about that. But the thing is, I was asking you a minute ago about Shador, and asked in jest, would Nick Bosa want to play with him? That's not really the issue. I was joking. The issue was more like players on offense, because we saw them do this with Trey Lance, and it wasn't about his personality or how it was about he wasn't ready, and he was too young, and there was a lot of older players on the offense who had
Right. Yeah.
strong feelings about it. So if you were to trade Brock Purdy and draft Shador Sanders and say, hey, George, guess what? Your new quarterback, Shador. I can see George being like, really? I don't know about that. And Juszczyk and McCaffrey and Williams and all of them.
We just love
If it's Rodgers, I could see George Kittle being like, you know what?
You could sell him.
I'm down. I mean,
you can sell
love
him on
this.
that.
Yeah.
I think the only slight difference why the 49ers would probably be if Shador was there and they did draft him, that they would be a little more ruthless to the offense, or whoever else veterans wouldn't be okay with it, is like, look, we're phasing you guys out already. Why do you think we're trying to replace most of the players left in the upcoming drafts? Like,
they could draft Shador, trade Purdy, and sign Rodgers if they wanted to. You can do all that.
Okay, then you got to start calling which would be funny because now you're in a love triangle because the Steelers and the Aaron Rodgers are the ones talking to each other, and now it's like, okay, we'll take Rodgers. We'll talk to him, and we'll give you Brock for that 21st. Yeah. Quarterback needed team. Obviously,
you got Aaron Rodgers, Shador Sanders, Mac Jones. That's a really good quarterback room. One of those guys is going to be good. Better than paying Brock Purdy $55 million a year, man. It's way better than it's cheaper, and you have 3 guys and another first-round pick. Come on, Brock, I love you, man, but your ultimate act of service to the 49ers is going to be this trade that you are in soon.
But I think that also there are probably the other option you could look at it, the other perspective look at it is like, wait, so you're going to also bring in Aaron Rodgers and like have Shador just sit for a year when he could start. So that's like another thing. There's a lot of like juggling here, variables.
No. You sign Rodgers just to keep Kittle happy, and then you have an open competition, and then Mac Jones wins, and then you just go with the best player available, man. It's what it is.
That's disgusting.
Everyone's happy.
Disgusting work.
So. A-Rod said to McAfee in 2023 he'd never play here. Dude, A-Rod says all kind of stuff all the time.
A lot of things. That's the guy who his word I never take with any face value.
He said he didn't get Robert Saleh fired. Right?
Okay.
He didn't know. Sure. All right. That's a half hour of trading Brock Purdy. He hasn't gotten traded yet. We'll see what happens. But let's talk about someone who's maybe more likely to get traded, Brandon Aiyuk. I think it's clear the Niners. Well, I think it's clear that the Yorks would be open to trading him. But that's not a football move. That's a financial move, and it's not a cap space move. It's just a straight up York's bank account move, which is hard to get excited about. What do you think about potentially trading Aiyuk?
Don't mind me, Grant. I just got a sign here. Just chilling.
He's walking around with that. Hey, by the way, have you seen this?
By the way, I'm gonna get this vinyl on my car for a week and just driving this around. No, don't trade him. I don't give a damn about your cash spending. Like over here, like this guy's over there gonna go to Wells Fargo, whatever bank account he has, and say, "Hey, change my routing number. I don't want Aiyuk to have it." Like, come on, bro. Like, you guys, I understand like your disdain for it. You felt like you got thrown for a loop, whatever the case may be. It's like just live with it. Like, you're kind of screwed here because he did tear his ACL and MCL. If he didn't any of that and just came off a very middling year, okay, sure. Like at that point, maybe you could get a 3rd round pick for him or a 2nd round pick. And then you save some money. No, keep him because it kind of goes back to the same point. Like, what did you extend? Why I wanted them to extend him is you're extending him because it's an investment at your quarterback position as well, which is going to try to coincide with your potential extension if you do with Brock Purdy, whoever is there. Like, understand, like, concern, like, when he's going to be back. Will he ever return? It's like, you know what? It's like, again, and I think we covered it last week too. It's like you kind of put yourself in a little bit of this Dre Greenlaw situation when it's like you gave him up for a 4th and 5th just to save some money in 1 year. That's not cap space. That's not this and that. And now look, now he's killing it with the new team. You're going to be looking like, it's like, wow, you guys were really frugal about that. You guys were very moronic. You kind of rage traded. That's what I said last week. You fantasy football rage traded because you got swindled after like a couple bad performances. In this case, you got swindled because of the extension. So no, do not trade him. It just seems unnecessary. It kind of also, last week we talked about it sets a bad precedent with Brock Purdy's contract. I think this in a way kind of sets a bad precedent of just like, look, we just traded a guy who came off of a blown knee and we didn't like it and we put it out there. That's the one thing that's weird to me. It's like, wow, you put it out there and you just really got this hardcore feeling about hating that contract.
I just feel like they gotta have so much regret that they didn't trade him last year. Because I mean, they didn't know he was going to hurt his knee, but they knew they didn't want to pay him really, and they could have gotten a first, maybe an early second for him. Now, I don't know what you're going to get for him, especially if you're like intent on trading him before April 1, so you don't have to give him that essentially $23 million option bonus. That means the other team has to give it to him. So what team is like trading you a 3rd round pick so they can immediately cut Aiyuk that check? I don't know that any team is. So I think the Yorks might just give him away, but that could come back to bite you because, I mean, what if he makes a full recovery, like, and you got nothing for him? He looks stupid.
And let's specify, who do we think is the ones that really are putting this out there at they hit that contract? Is it Kyle Shanahan? I don't think so. I don't think it's Kyle. Kyle's the one that ran up the stairs. That little story that Silver wrote, whoever wrote, that ran up the stairs that says, "Don't trade him." Like, so I highly doubt it's him. John Lynch might be kind of in the middle where we love Brandon, but I get it. And then after that, it's obviously the finances team, like Paraj, his execs, his staff members, maybe even Jed York. I think those are the ones I like for sure, like, are so outspoken, just keep letting everything know about this. I really don't think it's Kyle Shanahan who has a problem with this.
I do think we need to account for the weird year that happened last year. Like, there was the holdout, and that seemed, regular. It happens every year, but the way Aiyuk's went down seemed like it left bad blood between both sides. And then once it was finally over, it didn't seem like it was really over. Like, Aiyuk still kind of seemed miserable, and there was that whole weird shorts thing. And I wonder if he wants to be here, and if they want him here, and if that's sort of what's going on in addition to the finances.
Yeah, and I actually wrote this yesterday. It's like the 49ers might feel forced to, where it's like if it gets to a point where like, dude, like this is just gonna become toxic. Like maybe not necessarily he'll be like, a crazy distraction. I don't take Brandon Aiyuk as that type, but it's like, all right, this is just bad energy out there, even though nothing's being said, and we need to get rid of it. So maybe they do feel like, hey, if we'll get a 5th, it'll save us money, and it's already bad. It's irreparable. We can't salvage this because of all that weirdness from last year. And like, again, at first it started okay, but then it starts getting that, like, okay, like now it's getting annoying. Look, they had to have that random meeting before 4th of July. Remember? They never did that before with anyone else. I don't really hear of teams doing that. So they had to have that random meeting. John Lynch had to fly in from wherever he's living at, and other people, like right before 4th of July. And then they finally get those trades going. And he's like, no, I don't want to go there. Okay, Brandon, what about this? No, I don't want to go. Well, make up your mind. Like, do you want to stay with us, bro? Like, I think it's the indecision. Once they started getting there, that's where it started like pissing the 49ers off and the fans.
What about this? What if Aiyuk is upset because he doesn't want to play with Brock Purdy anymore, and Brock Purdy throws the ball to Juwan Jennings too much and Kittle, and he wanted to go play with Jaden Daniels, but that ship sailed and Debo beat him to the punch. But if they get Shador, he's back. He's in. He's enthusiastic. He's pumped to be here. What do you think?
I say no because he came off a year when it was an all-pro with Brock. So I think for sure he would like a little more. But I think that's a universal wide receiver thing. You got AJ Brown who's freaking crying and moaning on the sideline because Devontae Smith's getting more targets in one game than him. So I think that's kind of just like a wide receiver thing, ultimately just to get overall more targets. But I don't think it's necessarily directed at Brock. That might be like maybe even like Kyle thing, especially in the Super Bowl. Like he wasn't really targeted in the Super Bowl. I think that was a Kyle Shanahan game plan. Like, I'm going to ride with my guy, Debo Samuel. Like, come win me this ring. Take me home country roads, baby. And then it didn't happen.
If they were to trade Aiyuk, how would they spin it to the fans?
Oh, God. That's a great question. I mean, honestly, I don't think they need to spin it because I think there's a large portion of fans who still are salty at Aiyuk. The same way, look, honestly, I've had this new saying like, for the last 2 years. It's like, look, like, as much as like casual fans sometimes could be like a little like, were not really on the board. I think in terms of like the energy and the vibes they feel, they're never off. It's like, look, if your vibe's feeling that way, so is the team. Like training camp, like, hey, these vibes are weird. Like everyone felt it. Most fans felt like, yeah, it wasn't really feeling good. And then sure enough, like it set, like it was really off. Like it was really off. So I think like they kind of turn on them. Hell, I've even had like certain people in my family or just friends come in like, dude, like what's up with Aiyuk's like BS? It's like, what BS? What has he done? Like like, sure, there's been some antics that are a little unnecessary, but like you're acting like he did something that was like extremely like very like boisterous or something. Like, I don't know, like, okay, the shorts one, that was definitely forced, but like the social media stuff, it's like, look, come on, like there's been plenty of professional athletes for extension that did that, but there's a lot of fans who, kind of like turned on them. So I think they wouldn't need to really spin it that much or have to put too much investment into that.
I just don't see why a team would trade for Aiyuk now. I mean,
No.
he's coming off an injury. I don't think he can run yet. Maybe he can do a little, but he has a long ways to go in his rehab. He's expensive, and you have to give him a check on April 1. What is the incentive for a team to say, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it on March 28th. Maybe the Niners will pull this off, but I think the only incentive would be, hey, if we trade for Aiyuk, now we could get him for a 7th-round pick. The Niners will give us a 7th-round pick if we say they'll pay us. They'll give us a double cheeseburger if we trade for him right now. And they make great double cheeseburger. I don't know. I don't see what the incentive is.
Especially if you're a team, why not wait for the 49ers to get put on that hook with that payment and then you trade them kind of.
Wait. There's so many incentives to wait. You don't have to pay him $23 million. You get to learn a little bit more about his knee. And there's no guarantee that his knee's going to make a full recovery, right? It wasn't just the ACL. It was ACL, MCL, meniscus. You get all kind of more information. You don't even know if he's going to play this year. What if he's ahead of schedule and he's ready to go week 1? Maybe there would be a trade market for him. But if it's like looking at he's going to have a Dre Greenlaw type year, then what's the rush? What the Niners don't want to do is pay him to do nothing. Why would some other team pay him to do nothing this year? That's the Niners' problem. That's what you have to deal with. Sorry.
That's just one you get. That's just one, I guess, L you got to just wear in the chin and be like, we're just going to have to ride with it out. I just think it's now you put yourself in a very weird, awkward situation because you guys have been force feeding so much of the smear campaign on him again, like you did last year by leaking the trade, that leaking that he wanted to trade, that leaking the trade offers, leaking the numbers, which I remember in an interview, he said he did not like seeing the contract negotiation numbers put out there. He's like, yeah, I didn't like that. I think he was on with Shannon Sharp and he said that or something, but I digress. You're going like, how do you go back in that building now? Oh, we're stuck with him. He's not an idiot. He sees and hears what was going on. And if he hasn't, someone's been telling him, like, it's like, wait, like they really hate it that much. And it's like, all right, well, I'm gonna take my time and come back or something like that's why I think that's why I think it goes back to like, that's why you maybe trade him or have to trade him and like even take like the lowest offer. Cause look, they're doing this to themselves by doing the smear campaign. They did it last year by waiting for the contracts. And they're doing it now, but it's just all this weird things that the way they keep like trying to attack their players through the media.
Is it possible? Here, I got one more topic for you. Is it possible that this Aiyuk thing affects Purdy's negotiation? Let me lay it out. Let's say the owners have told the front office, you guys have X amount of dollars to play with for football contracts this year. Last year it was $334 million. This year it's going to be less. We don't know what the number is. Right now they're sitting at $228 million. Hold on. $228 million, which is Jesus, 5th fewest in the league right now. So they have a dirt cheap roster for 2025. A lot of dead cap. I'm sure they've earmarked some more cash, some of it for Purdy. But if they have to give out all this money, it's not just $23 million for Aiyuk. It's the option bonus on April 1st plus his salary this year. So it's $30-something million. If they can't get out of that payment, which is freaking huge, would that make them more inclined to trade Purdy or less inclined to pay him what he wants because they just don't have the cash? They gave it to Brandon Aiyuk.
I think less inclined for sure to pay him, not to trade him, but I think like that's where like they will definitely like go into the sand, not even the cement. They'll go into the wet cement and then put their feet in there and just wait for it to dry. Like, yeah, we're not.
We don't got it.
Hell no.
You want $55 million a year? You want $100 million guaranteed? You want the signing bonus? We don't got it. Ask Brandon, man. He took it from us. It's Brandon's fault.
like a thief in the night.
Yeah, ask Brandon for a loan, man. That's your guy.
I think that's where, and imagine if they actually did tout that point. If you're Purdy in his camp, like how pissed you would be. It's like, what the hell's he got to do with me? I'm not the idiots who paid him that much. You guys did. You guys waited that long, and that's where it's like, look, man, it's like you guys do not get that credit for doing all this stuff. Like this is kind of like your fault. But this is why I think, like, yeah, like when that direct deposit does hit into Aiyuk's account and that cash is sent, it's like that. Yeah, that does probably for sure emphasize at least a little bit. Like, yeah, now we really can. We're not going to spend this much on you, and why spending them lucratively is not. Because, like, look, again, you're coming off this down year. We're not too sure. We'll pay you this much though, because it's what this team has pretty much, I guess, not come out and said, but no, actually, John Lynch did kind of come out and say it. So yeah, they come down and say like, we're not spending. We're doling it down. So who's the player? Honestly, what about George Kittle? We could throw in George Kittle into this too about his extension. Because he's another one of all the players who needs extensions or that deal this offseason. It's him. He deserves the bigger contract to me than Brock Purdy does. Like, I was just thinking about today, like, what are his numbers going to look like? He's going to look like 17, 18 mil a year, maybe like 50 guaranteed, maybe not 50 guaranteed. I don't know how the guarantees are with tight ends off the top of my head. But, like, that's another one you got to take to account for. You're going to have Kittle run the last year of his deal. Like, he's the one that really needs to get it done. So I think that's another one that just stacks on top of when, like, that deposit hits when you got to pay Aiyuk, and it's going to make things a little weirder with Purdy.
Let's talk about that in a minute. Before we do, I want to look at Jared Goff's contract because I think there are some similarities between Goff and Purdy. I mean, Purdy's going to use the fact that he's been to a Super Bowl in his favor. Goff had been to a Super Bowl when he got his extension last year from the Lions. And what he ultimately signed was 4 years, $212. That's $53 million a year. Purdy could get the exact same deal. He could, according to Jordan Schultz. That's sort of what he is estimating this is gonna end up. The signing bonus for Jared Goff. This is a check that he got when he signed. $73 million. $73 million. So I don't do if the Yorks might not have that plus 23 for Brandon Aiyuk. You know what I mean? They might be like, ooh, sorry, we wanted to, but now we can't, and we really regret it. And boy, if we could go back in time, we wouldn't give that contract to Brendan, but we did. So, Brock, here's our offer now. And if you don't like it, you can always come back and play out your rookie deal, and we can talk next year. We'll have so much more cash next year, I swear.
It's actually funny because like that, the Goff, and even I think Jalen Hurts, if you look back, it's just above him too in terms of guarantee. But I think he might have. I think Jalen Hurts has more guarantee, but less annual per
signing
year.
bonus. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. So to me, I feel like if you're signing Purdy to an actual past 3 year mark, I think he's gonna try to slide in between them, which is a little bit like but I'd be okay with that just as long as like the guarantees don't go past that. I think 171 rate and 173, and then you gotta try to figure out what the signing bonus is. I think what you just said. What if that's probably why like the Niners are making an emphasis like we're gonna reset our cash spending. We're not gonna go too heavy because we're expecting to pay. We might have to. We're most likely gonna have to pay Aiyuk, barring a trade, and then we're gonna have to give Brock Purdy a signing bonus. You know that was the first thing when people said like, they're letting all these players go because they know they had to pay Purdy. Now they already had the salary cap space unlocked, but now I think after having a losing season, now it's like, now when we do gotta give Purdy that signing bonus, now we gotta like stack onto that, and we're not gonna really try to fill anywhere else. We're gonna try to fill the rest with the draft.
And what's scary too, I'm looking at Spot Track for these numbers. Goff guaranteed at signing, $113 million.
Yeah.
Hurts guaranteed at signing, $110 million. So that's essentially what Schultz thinks Purdy's going to get, and maybe Purdy expects to get more than $100 million guaranteed, and more than $50 million a year. I mean, I don't know, man. You could say, well, Hurts got it, so why not Brock? All I know is that when Brock went to the Super Bowl and faced the Chiefs, Steve Spagnuolo said, I'm not letting Christian McCaffrey beat me. You're going to have to beat me, Brock. And he threw 38 times. He had like 6.7 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, no picks, not a lot of points. He was okay. He couldn't beat him. When Hurts went to the Super Bowl and Spagnuolo said, I'm not letting this running game beat me. You got to beat me, Hurts. He balled out twice and won once. So I think that's why they're paying Hurts and why I'm still skeptical that the Niners should pay Brock and can win that way.
Yeah, if you're gonna give him that long-term security deal for 4 or 5 years, you definitely cannot pay him more than Jalen Hurts. You just can't. That's why I like if you can sandwich him in between somewhere of the Goffs and the Hurts, like those. I think that's the perfect tier that he's at. Like right there, right around that top 10, 11 quarterback range. Like, okay, yeah, cool. Like that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would feel comfortable with that. I would love that. I think that's the perfect deal for me because even like I think if you even slid it to your right, I think the total guarantee. Like again, I'm always stuck on the total guarantees. They're in the 170s, and I like that. I like the 170s guarantees. I don't want him anywhere around that 200 number. That makes my skin crawl. Like, oh no, do not give him anywhere close to that 200. Give him around that 170 range. That feels perfect where he's at. Maybe a little more given the down season. I think that's what you feel comfortable with.
David Baker says this is the worst soap opera. Plus, he's been a member for 34 months. Thank you, David. It's the best soap opera. I love it. BA is going to stay because Kyle needs a scapegoat, says official BNA Music 88. That's a good point.
How's he going to scapegoat Brandon Aiyuk?
I don't know. But he does need one. All right, you brought this up a minute ago. George Kittle. They could extend him or they could trade him. Here's the thing. They don't seem like they're super eager to give out extensions to older players anymore. They did that last year. It didn't work out. That's not George Kittle's fault. George Kittle's a great player. But he's going to be 32. He's going to want to be the highest paid tight end in the league. He's probably going to want more than a 2 or 3 year deal. I mean, he's George freaking Kittle. So you could absolutely justify paying him that. Or you could say, you know what? We've done this too much. We gotta finally take the Bill Walsh advice and get rid of a guy a year too early rather than a year too late. George, you're worth like at least 1 first round pick. We just freaking signed Luke Farrell, and they brought in Harold Fannin. They're bringing in Harold Fannin Jr. for a top 30 visit. They're clearly in the tight end market. What do you think, George Kittle on the way out of town? What do you say?
No, as of now, but I don't think it's as far-fetched as anyone would want to think. For starters, no, do not trade him. That's very. I get it. You try to get out a year earlier. Like he's on the down end of his career based on age and given the way he plays. Like, is he going to sustain it for another year or 2 or 3? I'm personally of it. Like, you know what? At some point, you just gotta like give it to the guy who's been like your best, who's going to go down as one of your best players in franchise history, especially given the low point you were in for early on with his career, and he came off arguably one of the best, if not the best, season of his career. So I'd be very on board like giving him that cash. But it's ever since what seemed like
cash.
Exactly. It's not my cash.
Yeah.
What seemed like an easy lock to that he was gonna get an extension now feels like what the hell are they gonna do given this new financial limit plans and stuff like that? It kind of ties in the same with Purdy. Like, dude, are they actually gonna go that far? Like, how much are they gonna give for him? Like of between the two players who they would probably extend between Purdy and Kittle lucratively, it's probably Purdy just because of that young, like that new regime they're trying to look for. You know, Kittle 31, like, you know, he hasn't been, he's not injury prone as much anymore, but he does get battered. And it's not like the arrow's pointing up. He is up and it's only pointing down potentially. Like, are we going to do that? Like, and then you're going to look like, well, we did it with Trent Williams. It wasn't really great. An elite player, one of the best in the league, but that's probably not one we liked.
What about this? We just spent a whole episode talking through hypothetical Brock Purdy trades. And with the Steelers one, we thought that there's some real validity to it. Like it actually has some legs. Not that it necessarily will happen. Let's say it does happen. Let's say Shedeur Sanders falls to the Niners. They get him at 11. The Steelers call up. They offer 21. And Brock Purdy goes to Pittsburgh. And George Kittle loses his freaking mind. He's like, whoa. I want to win a Super Bowl. You're rebuilding. That could be another reason where they'd be like, all right, well, if you want to get traded, we would never want to trade you, George. We freaking love you. But if you want to get traded, then we'll grant your request just like we did for Debo.
Kind of do it the way it's like we were already kind of thinking of it, but you said it so we can pawn it on you.
Yeah, exactly, man. We're not breaking up with you. You're breaking up with us.
It's like, hey, guys, even though we had it literally written down in our journal to-do list, like, yeah, maybe I can see it. I mean, we already see them doing it with Debo. Why wouldn't they do it with George?
They could throw Juszczyk in the trade, too.
Yeah, someone's going to want Juszczyk, right?
Yeah. The Steelers almost traded. They could trade Purdy and Kittle and Juszczyk to the Steelers in a package.
No, that
would be a lot.
That'd be crazy. That'd be a crazy thing to do. The free agents are forever going to distrust the 49ers if that happened. But
get TJ Watt, 21, Cam Hayward. It could happen. Minka.
You're firing off like a machine gun right now.
Sorry, the ideas are coming to me. I don't know.
Brainstorm. No, I think George. Would George want to trade? I honestly don't think he would want to trade. I feel like he's a guy who's like kind of content. Like I'm kind of content with just ending my career here. I think he's kind of content on that. Unless the 49ers, like I said, they'd go to that point where it's like, we're not extending you, you're out. Like it would have to be like, yeah, full on, like it's us.
Yeah, we're the Oakland A's now. Sorry.
They are having an Oakland A's off.
They're very, very much. We keep waiting for them to spend money, and they're like, we're only spending on dinners for Parag and Jed from now on.
That's where, and I actually have it loaded up on the queue. I guess a little teaser of a future article is the cash spending limits they're putting this off season. That has to be a 2025 exclusive. I don't want to hear about that next year.
Exactly.
I do not.
We don't know that, but we assume it and hope that that's the case.
Yeah, which goes and ties to topics from a few weeks ago. It's like, is Parag having more power than we think he is? Is this more than a checks and balances? So this better hope that this is just this year. Like, I will give you the benefit.
If Parag is in power, does that mean that these deals are going to get done quicker, or are they going to drag out longer? Because it always seemed like that was his thing.
That they get done quicker,
longer. Right? Like he's the guy that's like the sweated out negotiator who he wants to win every little detail. Like this is going to take a long time, Brock. I don't care I love how Brock said he wanted to do it quick. It's like, God love you, Brock, but it's not going to happen.
He definitely saw.
I would like my $55 million a year quickly, please. Thank you.
No, Brock definitely saw what happened to Aiyuk. He's like, I think the fact that when Brock said that, it pretty much showed like, yeah, that kind of impacted us a little bit. But even last year before too, with Bosa, like, I mean, that's the funny thing. It's like they were able to overcome the Bosa thing, who's obviously a far dramatically better player and impactful player on the team, but they were with Aiyuk was different. I think it just tied into that Super Bowl heartbreak. But I digress. It's just they better just hope that it's not that kind of a reset. Because if it's like, okay, we're doing it a 1 year wonder, we're copying the Bills, we're copying the Rams, sure, whatever, it's all good. But now it's like, no, we got a little too much. We're getting a little too. Now we are the Oakland A's. The A's left. We saw the A's move to Sacramento. We figured there's a spot open for us.
Let's carry on their legacy. Because now all of a sudden they're in Sacramento. They're spending money, baby. It pisses me off. I don't even root for that team. But as a Oakland resident, pisses me off. Moonman has just became a new member. Thank you. Johnny Angel says no quarterback should get paid more than Mahomes until they win a Super Bowl. He's crazy asking for 60 M's. Give him 45 a year for being a 49 a year for being a 49er. No, give him 28 a year for being a 49er.
He's not crazy for asking for it. He has to ask for it, right? Because even no matter what, if he thinks he's worth that or not, you have to go high. I go low.
Yeah, the NFLP, like Players Association, won't allow you to be a good guy and take way under market rate.
It's a very intricate situation of how it goes. I really feel like Brock's negotiation is such an awkward one, and it just factors into more with these situations. George Kittle's extension, Brandon Aiyuk, we're going to pay you. Like, where's this going to go? This is going to be another drawn out situation.
I just want to thank the 49ers for being indecisive and dramatic because they could have gotten this out of the way. They could have got this done first thing in the offseason. Then what we have to talk about right now. D winners. I mean, that would be fun. So thank you 49ers for just being you. You know?
What are they waiting for? They're not going for reagents.
No, they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Haven't you seen the moves they've made? Luke Farrell. Anyway, Jose, I really appreciate you coming on the show. You're a little negative, but I think you kind of balance me out because I'm a big Niner guy. So there it is. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be back tomorrow.